So I'm reading Churchill's Shadow by Linda Stoker, and this is chapter 2. Stella, a Rolls Royce and transport for evacuees. The 8th of July, Abraham Gould's Brighton townhouse. Abraham Gould paced around the room in a series of small circles. He took out a large handkerchief from underneath his frock coat and wiped perspiration from his forehead. "Martin, my wonderful grandson, come in, come in." Martin caught his reflection in the large mirror over the 17th century fireplace. He smoothed the jacket of his Savile Row morning suit, preparing himself for what would be a difficult conversation on the eve of his wedding. Abraham halted and picked up the fire tongs. "May I take a few minutes, Martin, firstly to offer you my blessings for your marriage? Stella has studied hard and Rabbi Silverthorne is content with her conversion to our religion." "Oh, well, thank you, grandfather. Your approval means the world to us both." Martin sat down on one of the high-backed fireside chairs. "We'll be making a fresh start in Paris with the South Downs Bus Company. I'm really honoured to have part of the business to run." Martin, we Jews consider the wedding day the happiest and holiest day of one's life. And for on this day, all past mistakes are forgiven as the bride and groom merge together as one soul. Paris is a beautiful city, a city for lovers. But I have some concerns. Martin wiped an imaginary bead of sweat from his brow while he waited for Abraham to continue. His grandfather began to pace again. "I'm just not sure if now's the right time for you to go to Paris. My old bones tell me something's not right. Look, Martin, things happened to our family in Lithuania years ago. We had to get out. And now, look how our relatives are suffering in Berlin. Cousin Silverman's London home is full of people who just got on the first boat out. Oh, thanks be to God, we are safe in England. I'm just not sure Paris will be safe for you. Jews are being murdered in Germany, and Germany is next door to France." "I've read the papers, grandfather, but I'll be in Paris, not Berlin. And it's not as if Stella and I couldn't take one of our coaches to a port and come straight home if necessary." "I love you, Martin. I'm only concerned for your safety." Grandfather Gould raised his palms to the ceiling. "God give me wisdom." The old man looked at Martin's face, so eager and determined. "Please, can you just promise me that if there's trouble, you will come home?" "Grandfather will be back in a flash at the first sign of danger. You have my assurance." They embraced. "May God love you and always protect you, my dear Martin, my only grandson." The wedding service was held at sundown, beginning with the Jewish ritual of Havdalah to mark the end of the Sabbath. The wedding reception was held the next day in the Grand Hotel on Brighton seafront. Stella wore a white silk couture wedding gown, cascading to the floor. Before they sat down at the top table, Martin held her at arm's length and took a long look at her. Her shoulder-length brown hair framed her perfect features. He took in the gentle curves of her slim figure, accentuated by her fitted dress. Martin kissed her hand. "Mrs. Gould, you are my very own film star." Stella blushed and took a little curtsy. Walter walked across the room and smiled. "Mother and Father would be overwhelmed with joy if they could have seen you today. Your happiness is shining on all of us." Stella kissed Walter on the cheek and folded back the sleeve of her dress to reveal a patch of the white lace she'd sewn there from her mother's wedding gown. Martin took in a deep breath as the master of ceremonies called for the chattering wedding party to silence. He fished in his pocket for the piece of paper he'd scribbled some notes on for his speech. Oh, he thought, I should have talked this speech through with Stella's family first. What if they're cross with me? But how could Stella not love Paris? And how could Paris not love her? Stella whispered, anything you say will be just fine. I love you dearly. She fiddled with her linen serviette. She had folded it into a swan. Martin's mother had frowned when she had seen her earlier undertaking the task in place of the staff. Stella explained the swans gave the wedding her personal touch. Her mother had taught her how to fold them, and it was a pleasure to make each one. My darling, my neshama, Martin began his speech, thanking everyone and revealing his plans to open a continental travel business run from Paris. Stella twisted her hands together in her lap. She looked across the room and studied each one of her family. Walter looked stunned. Kate was gripping Walter's hand. Bernie mouthed, no. Bernie's mother, Emily, dropped her head in her hands. The wedding guests cheered and Walter jumped to his feet to show support. He held out his hand for Kate, who rose as if in a trance. Sid Millward and his band struck up Someday Sweetheart. Stella walked with Martin to the dance floor and the guests applauded. She pulled in close to him and tried to lose herself in his arms as they danced. She felt dizzy as the room moved in slow motion. Thoughts swirled around in her mind. Her passion for Martin and her love for her family seemed to be on opposite sides of the room, and her eyes moistened as she had no idea how to bring the two together. Perhaps I should have broken this to them earlier, but then I would have had a week of Kate and Emily sobbing and Walter and Bernie slamming doors. Walter touched Kate's hand, which was shaking as she drank her champagne. He leaned forward and kissed her on the cheek. He noticed Emily was drying her eyes and Bernie had vanished. He walked over to Emily and held out his hand for her. She rose slowly and clung to him as they danced. So, my dearest sister, when will you be free for a trip to Paris? How about we give them a month? Oh, Walter, that would be wonderful, but how would we afford it? She held a strong resemblance to her brother and younger sister, but was a little overweight, being an excellent cook and having a hungry boy to bring up on her own. Now, don't worry, we have a big sale and we'll sell off all the old stock from the shop. The band struck up the new Glenn Miller number, In the Mood. Martin embraced Stella and they danced a quick step. Walter kissed Emily's hand as she sat down and offered his other hand to Kate. This is going to be a busy night if I'm going to keep both these ladies happy and the waterworks at bay. As he danced with his wife, his eyes took in the description of every face in the room. Oh, damn habits die hard. I should switch off. Meanwhile, in the downstairs hotel bar, Bernie gave a half wave to the barman. He hated to think of his Aunt Stella going further away. After all, she was like his sister. Or no, more than that, his best friend. He forced a smile as a weary-looking bartender took his money and gave him a tall pint without questioning his age. Bernie stood by the bar, keeping one eye open for his uncle. When he thought the coast was clear, he turned to find a bar stool, slopping his beer over a young man in a bad suit. Bernie began to sputter apologies. Sorry, mate. I'm Bernie. Hello, the bride's nephew. I don't want to upset the new in-laws. Let me get you a drink. Johnny Smith, said the boy, shaking Bernie's hand with a sparkle in his eyes. No bloody relative at all. I'm a mate of a mate of a mate of the groom. Oh, but don't worry about me old dad's suit. Mum will have it pawned again by Monday night. Johnny was a good 4 inches smaller than Bernie, but muscular and athletic with a handsome, angular face, bright blue eyes and fair hair. Here, let me get you a pint then. Bernie checked his own suit over for beer stains. Are you sure you're old enough to get served? Well, no, but just now I waited for the old boy there to come over. His eyesight's not so good. What's your poison? Johnny flashed a smile. I'll have a beer, please, mate. Same as yours is fine. Bernie gave the barman another wave. A pint of your best bitter, please. A wedding guest pushed open the door to the bar, shouting to the young men who'd escaped the formality of the banqueting suite. "Come on, everyone, the bride and groom are leaving." "Where do you think they're off to then?" said Johnny. "Didn't you listen? They're going to Paris and probably not damn well coming back." Bernie slammed his pint down on the empty table and stormed off. "I only bloody asked." Johnny took a large gulp of the free drink he had artfully acquired and moved Bernie's unfinished pint to rest in front of him on the bar. Bernie walked along the seafront kicking stones. He kicked a large one and bent down to rub his throbbing foot. Martin and Stella left in their hired Rolls Royce for the next ferry to France. Everywhere people were weeping and applauding, shouting, "Good luck, Mazel Tov, L'Chaim, to life." Walter held Kate on one arm and Emily on the other. "Good luck and good fortune, my little sister. We all love you. We love you enough to let you go." Kate and Emily were sobbing. Walter produced a clean white handkerchief for each one. "Come on now, if the new business turns out well, we'll be taking a trip to Paris before you know." Bernie walked for an hour along the beach. The moon reflected in the surf and he took large gulps of salt air and fought back his waterworks. 1st of August, 4th floor apartment, Rue Ségur, Paris, France. Stella and Martin rolled on the thick living room rug, entwined together. From the street, Pierre could see shadows through steamy windows. The moonlight streamed in from the large oval skylight. He waited. The curtains moved, letting in a cooling breeze that stroked their naked bodies as they lay on the floor. Martin kissed her lips, face, hair, consumed by her beauty and the warmth of her skin. He caressed her breasts. His touch was sensual and he was patient. The stimulation became more intimate and Stella's desire was burning. She turned over and sat astride his toned abdomen. She arched her back and her body tingled as she reached a plateau. Martin stopped moving below her and she pulsed with her need for him. She took on the work, rising and falling with determination. She rode him until her nipples became erect and crinkled with the intensity of her orgasm. She allowed the luxurious sensations to sweep over her body. Martin let go. His body kicked up in spasm. They held each other until their raised pulses ticked together at a regular beat. A sharp knock on the door made them both jump up. Martin moved first, throwing Stella his shirt while struggling to put on his trousers. He opened the door a few inches. "Pardon, monsieur." A Catholic priest stood at the door. "May I come in?" It's a little bit late, Father." Martin looked round to see that Stella had gone to the bedroom. The priest glanced from side to side, concerned that someone from a neighbouring apartment might overhear. "C'est une question de grande urgence, monsieur. A matter of great urgency." Martin checked again inside the room. Stella had left. "All right, come in." "It's about your auto coaches." "Oh, well, if it's about transport, I have an office in the Rue de Latre. Please make an appointment any time between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Martin started ushering the priest back towards the door. "Oh, monsieur, please, may I speak with you now? It is very urgent. It is a life or death matter. I have no one else to ask." Stella appeared, dressed in a beige silk robe. "Hello, can we offer you some refreshment, Father?" "That is very kind. I am partial to your Scotch whisky, if you have any." "Well, we are in luck. We had a bottle of single malt as a wedding present, and since we don't drink spirits, it would be lovely if a whisky drinker was to sample it." Stella retrieved the bottle from the sideboard and looked over to Martin. He shook his head, so Stella poured a generous measure for Pierre alone. Pierre sipped his drink and took a moment to enjoy the taste. "I'm afraid this is not a mere social call." The priest sat on the sofa, holding the glass with two hands. He had been told the man was of Jewish origin and expected him to be sympathetic, but he was unsure of the woman. Both were well spoken and appeared to be very English and perhaps a bit naive about world affairs. My name is Father Pierre Picard. I work for a French society that cooperates with a Jewish organisation to help Jews who are trying to leave Germany. I have come to appeal to you for your help with arranging travel for the Jews during this terrible time of persecution against our people, your people. He paused. Stella topped up Pierre's glass. Whether she was a Jew or not, he knew he had grasped her attention with his initial statement. Martin's frown lines deepened. Stella slunk into a chair beside Martin. He reached for Stella's hand. The priest looked nervous. You may be aware that during last year, thousands of Jews have fled from Germany. Many of them have come to France, even to Paris. Well, there are now some German children who are trapped at the border. Germans? I thought we were discussing Jews. Monsieur, these are children and their parents, German Jewish children. I have reports of about 500 stuck at the border, which is now closed. We need to get them out. Every night a few slip through, and it is my responsibility to arrange for their transport to a safe location. Is it really so bad in Germany that they need to evacuate their children to France? Stella tucked her knees up onto the chair. The priest drained his glass. Let me explain. Where shall I start? Hitler, the man the Germans call the Führer, is determined to persecute the Jews, but many of his own people don't agree with him. His tactic is to stir up hatred against the Jews. After Kristallnacht last year, when Jewish shop owners had their windows and bones broken, those Jews who still had money and somewhere to go ran. But it was becoming very difficult for them to get into other countries. Others had more to lose. Germany was their home. I'm here because I need to hire your coaches to help transport these refugees away from Germany and to safety in a neutral country. We have been helping them get to Switzerland and Spain, but the numbers have increased and we need more transport. It's really urgent we do this now. Father Picard, we are new here ourselves and we are trying to set up a business for a profit, not run a charity. Why not seek help from your church? This is a very dangerous mission you're asking us to get involved in. Besides, the company is not just my own, it also belongs to my family back in England. Martin looked at Stella for support, but Stella squeezed his hand and gave him an appealing look. The priest sighed. I'm not associated with the Catholic Church. I'm a Jew just like you. I'm actually a school teacher, not a priest. But these robes allow me to access many people as well as providing a disguise. Pierre stood up and, to the amazement of both Martin and Stella, did a theatrical twirl to emphasise the point. My own family were the first I helped. My cousins lived just across the border in Rushweg. I helped them leave and they are staying with friends in Hagenau. I think I've grown fond of dressing up, but lately, monsieur, it's becoming a serious job. It was your cousin, Ludis Silverman in London, who said you would be reliable. Oh, so cousin Ludis is a secret agent. Martin had suspected his cousin must have been involved in something clandestine. His home was full of relatives Martin had never heard of. Pierre grinned and shrugged. Stella squeezed Martin's hand. I know Hagenau. It's lovely. I remember the forest. I went there once with my brother, Walter, when I was a child. Pierre leaned forward to explain. Fortunately, my family left the Base Rhine area when there was still time, when you could still at least take a few possessions. Now people are leaving with very little. We can pay you, Madame, Monsieur, but we don't have much money. By the way, you must keep my true identity a secret. No one in Paris knows I'm Jewish or even my name. The real Pierre has given up the cloth, married a former nun, and started a new life in America. He was a friend, and it has done us both a favour to swap identities because I plan to stay here as long as I can to help my fellow Jews when the Germans invade. Martin stood up. Germans? Invade Paris? The Germans had plans to control all of Europe, and it would not be long before they attack France, like they have done to other neighbouring countries. They are stronger and more determined than our forces. They could even invade Paris within the year. Well, that's my prediction anyway, and I will feel safer in future if people say, there goes Pierre the priest, rather than there goes Pierre the Jew. When just a few hundred kilometres away, Jews are being broken and destroyed by a very cruel German regime. Well, I hope your predictions are wrong, Monsieur Picard. Martin looked at Stella, expecting her to be nodding her head in agreement with him, but instead found her studying the Frenchman. Pierre was young, about 25, with light brown hair and a thin beard. He had high cheekbones and a fine aquiline nose, with dark lashes that hooded deep-set green eyes. Stella mused herself that if Pierre ever shaved off his beard, he would look quite attractive and perhaps could be mistaken for a girl, if he ever needed to find an alternative disguise. Martin touched Stella's hand, and she responded by giving her husband an earnest, pleading look. He knew that look. She wanted him to approve Pierre's request. With a sigh, Martin nodded. Yes, Pierre, we will help you, but I would prefer to discuss this with you as a business proposition in my office tomorrow. Can you come back then? Whatever time in working hours suits you best. He got up and opened the door for Pierre. Don't worry about anyone overhearing us. I assure you my office is very private. Pierre could see that it was useless to attempt any further discussion and rose to leave. He turned to address each one of them, bowing his head as he said, Thank you for your hospitality, madame, and until tomorrow, monsieur. Martin closed the door behind him. Oh, Hitler invade Paris? Surely not. He only wants land in the east, what he calls Lebensraum, living space for his expanding population. Stella was already working out in her head the logistics of transporting 500 people from the border, the number of buses needed and the fuel required. She followed Martin to bed with a fierce look of determination on her face. So that's the end of chapter 2, and tomorrow I'll read chapter 3.